it was the transfer process. I'm pretty sure it's because he had a really good time in Vegas. But I'm telling myself it's the transfer process because I can't bear the thought of what occurred. But
I had one of them.
I'm going to call the criminal justice meeting to order.
they give him a nice
May I have an approval of the minutes of the previous meeting? Supervisor Gerard, seconded by Supervisor Brock. All in favor? On the agenda, we've got a big agenda here today, but I'd like to have Judge Hobbs from Glens Falls, who is really heading up this nighttime arraignment program, just fill in our criminal justice committee on where we are and where we're going. Judge Hobbs, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, folks, for inviting me to come in and talk to you about this. Let me explain to you a little bit about the history and how we've gotten to this point. Back in 2010, the Court of Appeals for the State of New York, which is the highest court in New York, decided a case that was called Harrell Herring versus the State of New York, where it decided that at initial arraignment, at the first time that a person arrested and being held goes before a judge, that defendant has the constitutional right to have an attorney physically present at that arraignment, and has that right as part of the county law. As you guys know, the county has to promote either the assigned counsel program or the public defenders program, or both through County Law 722. So that court case said that at the initial arraignment you have to have counsel available for a defendant if there's going to be any consideration whatsoever on holding the defendant on bail. Since then, a couple of years ago, I worked with Judge Marks, who is one of my bosses. He is the chief administrative judge for the state of New York, on new legislation to create what we are calling the centralized arraignment courts. It allows the town, village, city court judges, rather than to take the individual cases just in their jurisdiction, but to hear cases from any place within the county. This would make it so that the district attorney, the public defender, would be able to be present easily at the arraignment. The judges would be able to share on a rotation basis. The arraignments, you could do them at set times so that the DA and public defender would be able to be there. Right now what they're doing is they're going to various courts at various times of the days and nights, trying to comply with the constitutional requirements of having counsel present. So this would make it a simpler process of ensuring that the constitutional rights of the defendants are enforced and are allowed to be enforced. The legislation was passed so that the judges, under an approved plan, would be able to create these nighttime centralized off-hours courts that would run during mornings, early mornings, evenings, and weekends and holidays. The judges would be able to share that burden with each other on a rotation basis. The attorneys would be able to easily be present because you'd be doing it in a centralized place. They wouldn't be running from place to place. You wouldn't be transporting prisoners all over the place throughout the county. You wouldn't have 3 arraignments going on at the same time in different courts. A good part, and your attorney can talk to you about it, as part of the budget, County Law 722E was created, which indicates that if the counties put together one of these plans that is approved by the state, that the state shall reimburse the counties for the expense of operating that centralized arraignment court. So rather than being one of those dirty worded unfunded mandates, you at least have a statute that indicates that the county is supposed to be reimbursed. It shall be reimbursed for the cost of it. We have been working with a number of people here on trying to create a plan. We've got a physical plan that is based off of the Washington County plan, which I wrote for them, which was recently approved, and they are going to be starting. My hope is if we get the technology by October 1st. So Washington County is going to be up and running with their centralized arraignment plan, which will work at their county jail, in the visitors area of their county jail. They have set times for mornings, evenings, holiday, weekend arraignments. The judges have the rotation all ready to go. They're just waiting for the computers and that type of stuff, software to be up and running. We would love to have it for this county as well, because honestly what's going to happen is you're burning your people out. You may end up having to hire more people if you don't have a type of plan like this to make arrangements to have your attorneys available at all the various courts at the different times. So if we can put together a plan like we did in Washington County that we can get approved, we can have the centralized arraignment part similar to that county, where we're sharing the workload in getting the arraignments done. We followed the Washington County plan in putting together our plan because it was passed, so we know at least it passes muster through the state. Their budget was passed as well. We're following the budget outline that was done for that. There is an initial outlay that has to be taken on by the county, which you then have to put in for reimbursement once you're approved for the plan. In fact, we have JCAP applications, which I've provided to Brian. JCAP is Justice Court capital improvement funds that are available, grant funds that are available, that we're going to be putting in applications for the actual physical construction work that is being done on the court. The court is down at the old jail location, which is an unused part of the building here. The nice part about it is that you have port access where the vehicle can drive right in. It's totally secure in the sense that it has the fixed benches for the holding of the defendants. It's got an area available for counsel, for defense counsel to be able to meet with defendants. It's got a bench area that Frank Morehouse has already constructed. It's got a bathroom that needs some fixtures in it, but it will have a bathroom. It's got a back area where the judge can do some of his paperwork, his or her paperwork in the back room, and it's got enough space for visitors because this court has to be open to the public. What we've been struggling with is the cost of security for the facility. If you are having set times on arraignments in a centralized court, there is more of a likelihood that you will have people going to the court than you do if somebody calls a judge at 11 o'clock at night and asks for an arraignment, and the arraignment occurs at 11 o'clock at night. So if you have set times, there's more of a likelihood that you will have visitors. So you have to have security for not only the attorneys, the judge, defendants, but the visitors. The plan does call for that. Frank, Ron's been working on getting the numbers together for what it would cost to provide security. I think they now have, Ron, if I'm not speaking, I think they now have most, if not all, of your numbers together on what it would cost. The county has initial startup costs and the operational costs per year. So
That number is 158,000, as best that we can do. I think it was 195 in Washington County, but with Frank's help and our facilities, that's what we're looking at.
So, we think that it would be a great improvement to the court system, to justice in the county. It's a system that I think would work well in this county because you have the facility available to you, and the attorneys are present right in the building where it's going to take place, so it's easier for them. The judges are all willing. I've met with the judges at their magistrates meeting. They are willing, with the exception of one or two who only do maybe one arraignment during the entire year, to spend a week or 2 weeks during the year working this system. So we have the participants willing. It's easier for the sheriff to transport just to the local facility from the jail over to the courthouse than go to multiple different courts. We believe that the system can work in Warren County and would work well and would ensure that the defendants receive their constitutional rights without any violations, 0% violations in Warren County. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
The justices get reimbursed?
The justices are going to be reimbursed. The plan is to have them reimbursed through the state of New York on a voucher system directly. So it wouldn't go through the county and then to the justice system. Yes.
Are the security personnel, are they going to be reimbursed by the state as part of our operating budget, or is that something that we, the county, have to pick up?
The county would have to pay it, and then it would be part of the amount that you would have to submit for reimbursement.
Okay.
Yes?
I particularly enjoyed having that meeting when we had, a few people talking about what is to come as a result of this and the proposal. But I think there were a few things that were kind of left up in the air. I don't know if this is just informational today, Ron, or if you're looking for some type of a vote. But I would also like to see consideration to both the DA and the Public Defender's Office that if this can be reimbursed by the state, we should be looking about how many additional hours it will require on both of their ends. Maybe that's something we can include in the budget going forward.
We have those numbers. That was something that I asked the Public Defender and the DA to do for us, because I wanted to make sure that with the previous numbers and the new numbers that we were going to actually show a savings, and other than the savings of time and effort. So we do have those numbers. I think today, Rachel, what I was just hoping to do was to let the full committee know where we are with this. I know we had a quick tour the other day of the facility, just to show you folks what we have, and so that's really where we are. In terms of guaranteeing the money from the state, we're faced with that same problem that we just discussed with the college. Do you trust the state or don't you trust the state, and where are we going to be with this? There is legislation, according to Judge Hobbs, that says we will be reimbursed. But
Rachel, I think the plan is that this is more informational here. The plan is to hopefully have something available for review and approval sometime in December.
In December?
Yeah. So that, because it has to go up a chain beyond here even, so.
Judge, I guess my other question, though, that is more time sensitive is as we're doing the rehabbing, and the renovations with the courthouse, I know you were going to put together a list of equipment that we could start looking at now before things start to get, thrown out, sold, lost, whatever. Are we looking at that list of things that could be applicable to put into centralized?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I sent out a list, and I think you are looking at what you would need to have in there.
Oh, I had one more question, sorry. The clerk, we talked a little bit in that meeting about, is it possible to have the clerk reimbursed or paid for by the state, and we were going to look at them.
I would love to have clerks for the judges on this system. Washington County does not have clerks in their system. The judges are used to doing after-hours, evening, holiday arraignments without clerks, and there's going to be additional training for the judges on computer systems that they need to be able to use to do it. So we can put in for it. I don't know if we would be approved for it.
And all that is a direct expense from the state, not put down to the town.
That would be a reimbursement from the state.
Oh, it would
If you
be.
put it down as part of your part of the budget, it's
Okay.
this is not a state court. It is a county run court for the towns.
Okay.
But it is it would, if you wanted a clerk available, which would be wonderful. But if you wanted a clerk available, that would be put in your budget, operating budget, and then seek reimbursement.
And you have to remember now, we're talking about, when you're talking about a clerk, we're talking about 7 to 7. So the morning arraignment will be at 7 o'clock in the morning. The nighttime arraignment will be at 7 o'clock at night. So, how do you pay? Do you pay 1 or 2, or, figuring out that clerk's thing is going to be as costly as it was figuring out the security thing.
Yeah. And the question is, do you actually need the clerk to be physically present, or do you just need the clerk to do the paperwork after the inputting of the orders of protections into the web DVS program the very next day? If you could have a clerk, that would do the mailings, because the original documents have to go to the court of original jurisdiction. So if you're doing an arraignment for Hague, you have to get the paperwork up to Hague. So if you have a clerk that could do that, that clerk wouldn't necessarily have to be in the courtroom every single session. The clerk might be able to be a part-time clerk who the next day takes the paperwork, and next morning takes it.
But you are saying that judges would be trained to, that wouldn't hold up an order of protection being issued?
Correct.
The
It
judges
would
would
not.
put that in, okay, thank
The
you.
judges are going to be trained.
Perfect, thank you.
As an overall concept too, I mean, what we're trying to do, I think, is have this plan approved by December, or have it in the hands of the state by December, so that after January 1st, if we do get approval, then we will have 2018 or 19 to work on this and get it up and running. And once the plan is approved, then they know that, and we know what the dollars are, and Frank would finish off that room, and off we go. So I mean, the plan is the amount of work that has to be done between now and December is really the key. Getting everybody on board, understanding that our plan is going forth, and what we present to the state.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there any documents that we can review at this point right now?
Hmm?
Maybe we can get that sent to the committee.
I'll get you a copy of everything that we're talking about today.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you for coming this morning. Is there a drop dead date for when we get on the state given concrete date?
You don't have a drop dead date. Essentially, right now, you are meeting your constitutional requirements because your public defenders and your DA's office are going to various courts around the county on various times. So that is difficult. It has put a strain on those offices. A number of people I know have left the public defender's office recently. They have a huge turnover. I think part of that has to do with the fact that they have to be on call a lot through this system. You'll still have on-call people, but it will be different. You'll know when you have to go into court. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Judge Hobbs, and for the committee, you will all be getting a copy of this email-wise of what we've done to date, which would include pretty much a on our plan, which somewhat mirrors Washington County's plan, because theirs was accepted and approved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge.
Thanks, Judge.
Thank you. All right. Charlie, did you have a quick review that you just wanted to give us? Thank you. Charlie, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. The only thing I have this morning is just to review and finalize the budget that was submitted. So if everyone would like to take a quick look at that, find any questions they have.
Charlie, the revenue that you're proposing here in this budget is somewhat based on about $200,000 in building permits, right? I mean, and we're pretty close. We've done that years past, and you think you'll make that this year, right?
That's correct, yes. Building permits and fire safety inspection fees.
Now, we've gone through this budget with Frank. Frank has reviewed this. Any questions on revenue? Charlie, anything you want to talk about in terms of changes, or?
Just a couple of, a few minor changes. We went down I decreased automotive gas and oil by 500. I added that to education to be able to cover conferences a little easier. The biggest increase was obviously salary, as far as contractual salaries, so that was why there's such a difference. We did have availability to be able to increase revenue to try to offset that. This is the first year I've had to come in and actually ask for more money in the last 4, so working on ways to try to decrease that, going forward. But as far as everything else goes, I don't think there was really any major significant changes. Had to add $600 on supplies because of copier costs, which were being done between multiple offices, so that just got divided up this year. But I don't really think that, for the most part, other than salary increases, there was really much of a change.
Do you need a motion to approve?
No, just more informative than anything, and Charlie's been doing a really good job over there. I guess we'd say cleaning things up and organizing things and getting us on a straight and narrow. Is there any big projects coming this year that...
Not that I'm aware of. Word of Life had quite a few projects on the table for 18. Which was going to affect our budget. I did reach out to them. They've kind of pulled back the reins on most of them just because of funding and whatever. So I'm not really aware of anything really big that I see coming in the foreseeable future, which does have a big impact on our bottom line when it comes to numbers. So we kind of played it safe with the revenues, or tried to.
Okay, any questions from the committee? Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
That's good. Okay, now we have the public, we have the DA, right? District Attorney.
Morning.
Morning.
This is not on my list, but because Judge Hobbs was here, I just thought I would address one of the things that Supervisor Sieber had raised is this potential reimbursement. There was a resolution and some adjustments made, I guess the middle of this year, where the DA's office is starting to cover all the weekend holiday arraignments, and we figured out a way to do that. It sounds to me like if we're able to get this centralized arraignment plan, the county might be able to recoup costs if we go forward like that. So, I understand the concerns, will they actually pay? But that certainly would be a good opportunity to maybe recover. And since I'm here, and it is informational, if anyone has a question on that centralized arraignment, I'd be happy to speak about my opinions on it. But to what we have on the agenda, what you're going to see is the DA's office has three budgets essentially. There is like I call our overall DA budget, that's the first one listed. That is essentially unchanged, but there are a couple of little things that I wanted to mention. We are seeking an additional $1,000 for supplies over last year. And really what we're looking at is technology costs. Since the time I've been in the office, and most recently, we're seeing a lot more digital evidence, so body cameras, videotape interviews, cell phone analysis, and we're required to turn over copies to the court, to defense counsel, and usually it's two to the court and the clerks. Well, every one of those initially was small, they're growing. Cell phones are getting huge, so we're having to buy thumb drives to do that. So we're seeking that small change in order to hopefully address the volume of that kind of material that we have to turn over. In the old days, you would photocopy a defendant's statement, you turn it over, and you make 3 copies. Now we're doing DVDs for each one of those. In the old days, you didn't analyze cell phones. Now we do. It's all digital information that we have to make copies available to everyone. We didn't have body cams a few years back. Now the Glens Falls Police Department has body cameras that we've got to store and disclose. So that's that portion. The other, what I would say, modest change is internet costs. We were just looking at our budget. It looks like we're running a little short on that. We're asking for another $500 for this year to hopefully cover that expense. We do have the generic expense, and then we have a little more because we have some staff that go out to courts and have to have internet access, so we're paying so that they can have access at the courts. I'm happy to go into the details of what's done there. The other changes are, the salary cost of living that's in there. I did at the budget meeting ask that the non-attorneys also receive cost of living adjustment. And one thing that I had raised there, and I was told to raise here, it's not reflected in the budget, is resolution number 294 of 2017 was that per diem for the holiday weekend arraignments. We're doing that now, and we're seeking to continue to do that. We're not looking to change the rate to cover the entire year. Every holiday, every weekend, we're able to do it with that same $28,500 figure, which is, I believe, 114 days, if I'm correct. That's our overall budget. We have 2 other budgets. One is the OVS budget, that is that grant-funded budget, Office of Victim Services. That provides not only salary but supplies for the crime victim advocates that we have. In this case, that's Mano Affinito and Joy Savoy. We've actually received a larger award this year. So that's the biggest change, is they're seeking to give us more money, OVS is. There is a slight salary change, which reflects someone had a step, they've reached their 10-year step, and just regular cost of living. But otherwise, that is just a larger figure because they're giving us more. And then outside of the budgets, and I'm just going over everything, and then we can go back. Grants. There are 3 grants that maybe I've done things a little out of order. I'm not sure. Aids of prosecution is the first one. We've been receiving aids of prosecution, and we have applied. I didn't realize we need to ask to apply, so we're now here asking, can we receive that monies? The aids of prosecution is $38,172, and it's provided to supplement salary. We have 2 attorneys right now that are on that particular grant. It is reflected in the budget. You will see that figure in there. The next one is a legislative initiative grant. This is new. We have received a notification that we're going to be receiving $15,000. We have not reflected this in the budget because we are waiting for an official award letter. That money can be applied to assist narcotics investigations in Warren, Washington County. So that's mainly what we're seeking to do with that money is technology. I don't want to, someone told me less is more, but just briefly, we have certain equipment that we provide to the police that allows them to search cell phones. That equipment that they're using is going to run out. It's not going to be viable anymore. They're going to need something new. This would allow us to replace that and just keep that going without change.
And this is something we share with Washington County.
The monies are Warren County's to spend, but it's to benefit the Warren, Washington County drug, they're calling it a task force, but the relationship. As we all know, drugs don't stop on the edges of Warren County. We're right by 149, head straight over. So we collaborate with them frequently. Our law enforcement collaborates. So that particular device I'm referring to for cell phones, agencies, not only Warren County, have used that device. Whoever needs it, they ask for access and they get to use this particular device. That would continue, if we're able to receive that. The last one is, it says crime against revenue prosecution. Again, that's to supplement. That is an application that is due, I think, at the end of the month. We do have it in process, so we're ready to go. We have been historically receiving that. It is reflected in the budget. We are seeking to receive that as well. And none of these that I'm referring to have any matching requirements. It's nothing like that. It would be money that goes to supplement the budget.
Would it be the pleasure of the committee to put a resolution forth and accept all 3 of these, the permission for all 3 of these to be applied for?
Make the motion.
Supervisor McDonald, seconded by Supervisor Bramer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Will we have an opportunity to go back to talk about the budget, or would
Yep,
now be?
I guess.
No. Jason, as you know, I'm one of your biggest advocates you'll ever get for victims of crime, and have done it for almost 20 years. I have some concerns, however, when I'm looking at your 1168 budget, and I'm looking at revenues coming in at 205 for 2018, and expenses being 244. So we're looking at approximately $41,000 in dollar amount as a match. I'm sure that there's a lot of in-kind matching that's going on, but that's $42,000 coming out of the Warren County tax base, which of course is for an incredible program and one that's very important to crime victims and to our community as a whole. But in the interest of fairness, I guess you have 2 people in your victim unit?
Yes.
And how many people do you have in your DA's office, not including them,
How many staff people or attorneys?
altogether?
We have 7 attorneys. We have 1 investigator position that's covered through the week by 3 people. And then we have, I believe so the total number should be 17, but that includes, so I'd say 15.
Okay.
3 of them cover a single position.
So say 15 people, or however you want to say it.
7 attorneys, 7 staff attorneys.
I don't care if you call it 10, so 10 full-time, whatever you want to call it, and 2 victims in the 2 victim unit. I guess my sticker shock comes with looking at a supply line that you're asking for an increase in your DA budget, which is not by much, and it's understandable, but your supply line in a crime victim budget is the same amount for 2 people, and I understand what goes out, although it's less now electronically than ever, but the same thing applies to data processing. You've got 2,500 in there and you've only used 124, but for the entire DA's office, your data processing is 2,000. You have a food line in there for $8,000, but for yours is $500. I assume that's a crime victim's breakfast, but I know there's some revenue that comes back from other partners contributing towards that. But how come you've got a budget under the crime victim program that, I mean, a lot of these 4 lines are very similar to what it takes to support a 15-person unit versus a 2-person unit. I would imagine there's some crossover, but at the end of the day, you can say it's grants, but there's still $42,000 we're paying in that.
I mean, I guess, I don't know if there's a question or that's just a statement, but why don't I try to answer the best I can. What they've done is wildly raise the amounts. I raised this in budget. You're seeing major increases, and so what I understand the intention of this money is, and then I'll give you my personal opinion. So the intention is, as you know, the building expansion is going on, and it looks like the DA's office is going to expand, and our crime victim area is going to go through an expansion. So you're seeing a large amount of money for equipment. The idea would be that monies would be spent in anticipation of having that additional space. So these monies, basically the crime victim director is trying to find a way for this money and use it going forward. I have had some conversations inside the office since we saw this big increase, and I think it's going to be bigger next year, to have another person hired on. We really don't have physical space for another person right now, but certainly there is money being provided by this grant that would allow for that.
I understand
Whether it be
what you're saying
part-time or
respectfully, but $42,000 is the difference of what we're paying as a county. It's not a 100% reimbursable grant.
No, it's not. So it's 25% matching. I think what you're looking at is, I'm assuming, is fringe. Because we don't, as it's been explained to me, we don't put forward, the county does not pay any dollars towards that match, that 25% match. The way it's covered is by space. So they do a calculation for the space that is being given to the...
I understand what you're saying, but I think there's a lot more to this match than $42,000 in-kind and volunteer services, but this is dollars. This isn't your in-kind, this isn't your space, this isn't what the grant's covering. I'm just wondering, I understand if it's $8,000, $9,000 towards match money that goes into grants, but we're so hard on all our departments on grant money. And, I mean, to the point, I remember talking to Frank about COLAs for people. They aren't getting them if it's by grant and it's not written into the grant, which I thought was wrong. You know, we've got like 2 employees. I think one of them's in Marcy's office. They don't even get a COLA. But yet we're looking at $42,000 hardcore actual dollars versus volunteer write-offs and match money and space. And I just think that's a lot of money to increase a program by when the grant's not requiring that type of a match.
Well,
and could be found in other places.
Yeah, I'm not sure the difference, the increase for over last year. I guess I'm not seeing that.
Like if you look at your supply line, your adopted budget was $6,000, your amended was $6,000, your actual amount to date is $2,700, but your request for 2018 is $10,000.
Basically, what I can tell you is what I already said.
Right.
They granted a lot more money, and they're trying to figure out a way to address those monies. So they're actually trying to use some of that to look forward into the future and perhaps grow the crime victim group, as I should say.
Okay. I guess I could talk with Frank private. You don't have any concerns looking at this, or?
No, Jason submitted his budget.
I just think if we're going to ask the courts to reuse furniture, we can certainly ask all of our departments to be looking at usable furniture that's safe, that we can use. And just because it's a grant out there doesn't mean we have to spend all its money. You know, there's a way to utilize those funds to the best of our abilities.
Oh, no question. You could decide to turn some or all. I mean, you could shut the whole thing down if you wanted to. And you could turn some of this grant money away if you want to. I mean, that's why I'm here giving you what they're offering as far as monies and how I guess the county would have to respond. As it was explained to me, any of the matching, so I'm told this is not match money, real dollars, is coming out of space and interns. And the way it was told to me, and I think it was addressed in budget, was that was a separate, I think it was, I can't remember the figure last year, and that was covering fringe. That's
Well,
how-
I can send a follow-up email to the chairman, I guess, it's just doing the math and not seeing the actual grant, it's 42,000 is real money.
I think it is, but that's separate and apart from, because just my math is if it's over 200, 25% would be 50,000. So obviously that's not the number we're seeing there.
Well, if there's still some questions about it, as Frank does his final review of the budget, we will address that.
I just find it hard that there's a two-person unit that requires the same amount or close to.
County dollars out and grant out.
Yeah, I want to maximize our grant dollars to the extent we can, and not county dollars just to buy stuff in the supply line. Just to buy it doesn't make sense to me. But if we have to have a 25% match, and it all has to be actual dollars, which I don't believe that's the case, but I would like to see a breakdown of in-kind versus third-party match. But I think that's an excessive amount of dollars for a grant, and we are so tough on every department on the grant.
Absolutely, and I know this was raised in our budget, and Manoa was actually present and was able to better answer some of those questions probably than I was. So,
Yeah, but thank you.
All right. And anything, third, you have another?
do I have anything more?
Yeah.
The only thing, again, I just mentioned because we raised it at budget, Paulette, who's my assistant and who's here, had contacted, I think, Joanne and said, look, we're not seeing that 28.5 that covers the per diems. So I just wanted, and she said, raise it here. So I'm raising it here. Again, she said it came out of a different area. I have some emails. He said, be sure to mention this to your committee when presenting the budget. And we said, do we need to do anything more? Nothing more is needed. So I'd hate to see that get missed. Anything else?
Okay, no? Any more questions for the DA? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, for more money than transfer. It's been here. Tell everybody's grants on that one. I can pay this. You're not doing it. No.
Somebody around? Who's that?
Good morning. How are you, Public Defender?
Good morning. Does anybody have questions on the after-hours arraignment part? I had put it on my agenda so we could get it on in front of the full committee, and I'm very much in supportive of the position of that we should go forward with that. If anybody has any questions for me on that. Yes.
Yes.
Did you take a look at that proposal, how it will, I mean, I think that everyone is supportive of it, of the initiative, but is your office taken a look and made that financial decision that it really is going to save us money?
I think it will. What it does is I have an attorney who works on Saturday and Sundays, because as soon as the law changed, I got a grant position to cover someone working Saturdays and Sundays, and she works and covers those, and she works Wednesday, Thursday, Friday also. Again, not knowing that County Law 722E was going to go into effect, I requested a new grant position to cover morning arraignments and evening arraignments, with the person having a block of time off during the day. I have not gotten the signed contract from Wales. I told you they gave me the approval, but we don't have the signed contract, so I haven't hired that person. But it will be cost savings in the sense that when those people have days off and time off, I have to pay for someone to work and cover those hours. So it will be more cost effective. The county will get reimbursement for people covering those hours. And at this point in time, without having that contract in effect, with a body working, it is cost effective to my department.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, so that's the after arraignment piece. Nobody else has any questions. I have submitted my budget to you. As Mr. Carrasone has done, there is not a cost of living in there, and I would respectfully request that we be entitled to a cost of living. My budget is the same as last year. The only change was the salaries for this year that we've already gone through resolutions here. Those are the only changes. I have not asked for any additional funding.
Any questions from the committee? Frank, you've reviewed this budget too. Yes, Rachel.
Just to say that, Marcy, I think what we just talked about previously really illustrates the focus that you have on your grants. And over the last year, I've enjoyed learning the small amount of grants that you really do have, because I think the misconception is everything's funded by grants in your office. And you keep really, you're on them. I hope that there is training and funding coming up to help someone in your office also understand it to the same capacity that you do.
And as we talk about that, I'd like to introduce everyone to Erin Brothers. Erin has replaced Gina. Gina left and moved to Vermont, and Erin is a lifesaver. She understands the grant process. She's worked very hard with the different departments here, and I appreciate everyone's patience and explaining things to her, because I don't talk accounting. I don't. And they've been able to communicate with her on that level that I can't, and we've worked really hard on this budget and everything else, and I think she's a lifesaver, and I think you're going to love having her in my department. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Nice to meet you. Glad you're on board. I have a question about the departmental request for 2018 under revenue, oils. Should that be higher based on what we amended the 2017 budget, and knowing that you just went out, I guess you don't have it in hand, so you can't add it.
That's
Okay.
exactly right. We don't have the written contracts.
We're
We have
processing
three of
out
them.
loud.
We have sent 3 of them out. 1 or 2 in June when we sent them out, they lost. So now we send everything certified, return, receipt, requested, so that they don't lose them. So we don't have this time delay. But we're waiting on 3 to come back. Once I have them, I'll be able to do that. Okay.
All right, if there aren't any other questions on the budget, you also have a request for out-of-state travel.
Yes, I have a request to have one of my attorneys travel out of state. One of the things that I am doing with my attorneys is consistent with what the DA's office does. They give certain attorneys some specialties. And so I have an attorney who I'm assigning to sex crimes, the defense of sex crimes, and so there's a seminar in Las Vegas. It is all, I have it, thank you. It's all being paid by Office of Indigent Legal Services, and it is like a 3-day conference out in Las Vegas, sending only one attorney. In addition, we will be submitting for reimbursement from the agency that is giving it, which is a national agency, to try to get money back, because if we can, then the money that we get back we can use for somebody else for another travel education seminar. So that's what I'd like. So I have a resolution request for your approval to allow one of my attorneys to travel out of state, and it's all covered by oil, nothing paid for by the county.
Moved by Supervisor Gerard, seconded by Supervisor McDonald. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay. Okay, assigned counsel?
Someone's shocked.
Want me here?
Thanks, Bob.
No.
We don't review the sheriff's budget.
Good morning, folks. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing? Thank you. You're welcome.
We'll pass them down. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you.
They're
You're
coming
welcome.
down.
Thank you.
Matt did, thank you.
Here's another. Floor is yours.
What's that?
I said the floor is yours.
Okay,
Right there.
what would you like to know? Not a whole lot's changed. Had a little bit of money to contracts, $1,500 to equipment because I'm moving my office today. Gonna need another locking filing cabinet. It's about the only thing that's really changed. Any
We
questions?
have, just for the rest of the committee, we found a room to expand, and it's painted, it's all set, they're moving in today.
Moving in today.
Great. And
Very nice.
the previous quarters will be used by probation when they need it.
Poor guy. Yeah. Anybody have any questions?
Is there anything that you need to point out to us?
I don't think so. The only thing that may change in the future will be an upgrade on the appeals contract that I have, an additional money, possibly $10,000 a year, only because we're already at the max for the contract level for 1 year. And they've been getting hammered with a lot of appeals.
Okay. Yes, Rachel?
Joy, I think this is great. My only concern is that we're meeting with all the department heads, hoping that they'll take advantage of the encouragement to get training and go to conferences and education. And I see that you actually decreased from the adopted budget last year, your travel and training line.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, you know, is that because I recognize that many people can transfer within the 4 codes without committee approval? Is that because you have room to
Most of the
transfer?
ones that I go to are free.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not very many cost-bearing trainings that I can go to, unless I was going to go to some psychological conference or something
Right.
of that nature, then I would just transfer in between.
I just looked at a $10,000 training for 2 people, so I know you have a person and a half in your budget at
Oh,
$300, and I thought
I'm
maybe
dirt
you need a
cheap.
little more.
I'm dirt cheap.
Okay. It's funny.
All right, if there are no questions from the committee, thank you.
You're welcome. Come down and visit. See the new space. It's really nice. I warmed it up for you.
Stop, Joy.
Thank you. Have a good day, folks.
You too. Where does that all go? I want to see legal transcript fee. 800,000, but that's a salary.
You're a lawyer, you know.
That can't cost
Why don't you
that
know this?
much to do
You're
transcript.
the resident lawyer aficionado of the board. You need all that.
Should have asked her.
You were happy with
Discussion? Yeah.
Where
Were you?
I'm...
What, the grant for the revenue?
septic system moving forward, the light,
Thank you.
the people,
Legal, like, that equates to your 4 lines here.
people try to fix them.
So like,
That,
that.
I don't know if
your
that's a
office
problem
equipment,
or,
your other expenses.
I mean, I can see
this
it being a
amount,
problem,
your
but I
expenses.
don't.
These are your salaries. Fixing them is not a problem, and that goes into your benefits.
No,
So
alright.
this number.
You mean
No,
leaving them too
tell
close
them
to like...
we used to have, at my house, our house is like this, and our big
Thank you.
And it's just moving outward.
Oh my God, I didn't write my own figures.
A half
I
of
was
it
not
is
worth it.
clogged up. We're
That's when I understand really well that one.
John said that.
And usually
as-
it's like those guys.
Discussion. Chris Ryan.
Robert, the floor is yours. You
thank
want to go
you.
through your resolutions first, before you hit the
I
budget?
do.
Okay.
Good morning. Prior to me discussing our budget, I do have 2 resolution requests for the committee. The first one is to fill a vacant position. Probation Officer Chris Vesson retired effective today, and she's been a probation officer with our department for 30 years. She retired, so we will look to fill that position with a probation officer trainee position. Chris's position in our department supervises the individuals mostly in Glens Falls and Queensbury. She has a caseload of approximately 60 and probably does 6 or 7 pre-sentence investigations a month. I believe the position is certainly needed for us to maintain what we do.
All right. Moved by Supervisor Bramer, seconded by Supervisor Gerard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Next resolution request is a budget transfer. What happened was, we have three budgets. The majority of people are in our probation budget, and we have a pretrial budget also. We had, since about April of this year, we had the probation officer who's supposed to be in the pretrial being paid out of the probation. So what we need to do to make the pretrial budget balance is transfer $17,672.88 from probation to pretrial. Just a transfer of money from one budget to the other.
All right. No cost involved in it, it's just a transfer within the budget.
No cost involved.
I have a motion to the, moved by Supervisor Gerard, seconded by Supervisor Brock. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, the 2018 budget request. The probation department has three budgets. The majority of our staff and supplies and expenditures are in the probation budget. We also have a smaller one for day reporting that has one individual. And then we have another one for pretrial that has another individual. As you look at the budget, I will point out that the majority of expenditures is the same as last year. The increase is from contractual raises and fringe benefits. Our revenues are consistent. They were down $7,000 because of ignition interlock money, a grant that we have not got approval for yet. I first believed that we wouldn't get anything, but we may get a little bit, and as soon as we do, I will notify the budget team. And furthermore, there may be additional money for next year coming in a one-time grant from Stop DWI. So in the scheme of things, after we get those approvals, hopefully the revenues will be the same as they were last year. The majority of revenue we have $205,000 from the state. That's been consistent through the years. They haven't cut us, they haven't increased us, but it's better than most people get from the state in terms of going up and down. That's pretty much the drill. Probation, the day reporting budget's pretty simple. It's one person in there. Again, similar costs, as well as with the day reporting budget. A very small budget. Any questions? Anything I can answer?
Yeah, Supervisor Sieber.
Bob, just about your office equipment. I can see in the past years you didn't request any money, and then in 2017 it was amended to include some money for office equipment, and then this year you don't request again. Is there a policy?
We didn't request anything, and I believe with those monies through the years, we've got monies for cars that have come in that have been put in, and then this year we are a part of the upgrade with the computers.
Okay.
So,
So your department, you're not asking for any money in office equipment. You're asking for $5,400 in supplies, which is a decrease. Your phone, everything is constant or less.
yeah, our budget is basically people, and we haven't asked for anything because we've been able to hopefully improve what we do through technology, so we're not adding costs. Mail, our PSIs, we send with our officers to go to different courts, so we'll try to save 27 cents here and there.
And then my other question was just, what's the percentage that you're charged, the restitution surcharge? Your revenues are 15 there, but what's that percentage?
10%. We charge 10%. By law, you're required to get 5, and you can do 10 if you fill out an affidavit. We fill out an affidavit. Most of the courts grant them. The issue is the collection of restitution, which is not easy.
And that goes to help offset the efforts from your employees?
Yeah, it does, but it's very, 15,000 doesn't cover the cost.
Is that average in different counties, that 10% surcharge?
Most go after 10%, some don't, but yeah, I think that most do because it's an extra way to get 5%.
Any other questions? Frank, you were comfortable with the presentation of the budget? All right.
With the opioid crisis, has your job changed in terms of keeping an eye on whether people are going back to, using or whatever?
It presents challenges, but not unsimilar to what we've done in the past. Opioids is a big thing, and rightfully so. There's a lot of people that die from taking it. But through the years, we've dealt with various addiction crises, from constant ones, alcohol, and then, when I first started, marijuana, cocaine, crack. Our population is an addictive personality, and they will try whatever is available, but the stakes are higher now. One thing we've done to combat that, and we didn't mention it when Judge Hobbs was here, through the Council of Prevention, they were able to receive grant money to do an opioid diversion program for both Warren and Washington counties. In Warren counties, ours consists out of Glens Falls. So what we're looking to do is identify youth or young people between the ages of 18 and 25 who are arrested, typically on a misdemeanor crime, and who have some type of opioid addiction. And with that, the district attorney's office is involved and the public defender's office is involved. If the individual is willing to go to a program designed by the Council for Prevention called the Challenge Program, which is modeled after a juvenile program that has adventure-based programming as well as traditional counseling, they're offered a deal that basically says we're going to give you a deal in terms of if you plead to this charge or get involved with this program, where at the end possibly your charge is dismissed, you get a lesser sentence and those kind of things. We're just starting that up now. We have 5 slots for Warren County and 5 for Washington, but as time expands, we will work with that. So hopefully that helps a little bit, but it is challenging because the nature of the result of death, where before not so much.
Well, my main concern is whether you have enough money and personnel to stay on top of it, or if it gets,
We currently do. We track what we have, and the majority of people we have are in treatment with some device. We do a lot of drug testing. But for some of the drug testing with the confirmations that individuals come, we make the defendant pay for it. We hold them accountable in terms of doing that. So we tried to not pass the cost, but make them a part of what we do in terms of paying for it.
Okay.
All right. No other questions? Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
While Rob is still here, I should say that he did a really nice job representing Warren County at NISAC on the Raise the Age
Well, thank you.
Seminar. So that was really great. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll talk about Raise the Age now. Got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
It's Brian, right? Brian, you're next. Glad to see you up and about.
Well, yeah.
How you feeling?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Staying off the ladders, I hope.
I'm sorry, Ron?
Staying off the ladders, I hope.
Yep.
You hear about that,
I learned the lesson there, thank you.
Oh, I was glad. I don't know, but it tells us.
Well, in your absence, Amy made the presentation for the budget, and she probably got more than you would have got.
Thank you, sir.
Well, let me put it to you this way, Ron. You have an excellent staff.
I haven't talked to his wife in a while, but he was doing better, but...
I spoke to him.
Seven.
When was that I saw him? Like a week ago. When did this happen? Okay. Yeah. I saw him out and about. Recently. Yeah.
Where's Simpson? Okay, Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Supervisor Montesi. Following our agenda, first item we have, as we get down through, is the review of our budget. You should have all received our budget beforehand. I hope you've had a chance to review it, and we're willing to entertain any questions that you might have. There's no major changes in the way our operation is set up. I think our costs and our final budget are appropriate for our office. We're not asking for any extra money.
Brian, the work that we're doing on the fire training center is all covered by a grant, right?
Nope. That's coming out of a project fund that was created back around 2005.
Okay.
And we have been carrying that money over each year, both us and Washington County, They had half, we had half, and every time something happens, we are the fiduciary, we pay half, we bill, or we pay for the whole thing, we bill Washington County for the half. So, as I understand it, told this morning that the contract was completed with the vendor, so we're hoping to get started on that right away.
Good.
Talking to Kevin Hajos on Friday, DPW has offered graciously to be the lead as far as project management on that because of their knowledge of that type of work. So I'm hoping we can get that done quite rapidly.
And then the next step would be, once the water line is in and that stuff, getting those containers out of the Sebagaiga site and up to our site. Okay.
Yes, very much so. That would be our goal.
So as Brian had pointed out, there's no substantial changes in this budget. Are there any questions?
As you can see, as you know, we have multiple versions. We have separate fire control, EMS, the training center, our grant, that type of stuff. That's why there's so many different categories.
Supervisor Sieber?
Thank you. Brian, on your contract line 470 of your first budget, in 2016 you had 6,200, and I see in 2017 you were at the same amount you're requesting now for 38,000. But you've only expended so far 3,900. What's that contractual attributed to, especially since it's spent so late in the budget?
Go ahead, Amy.
On the fire side of things, there are two things under the contractual. They're both contracts that we have with the City of Glens Falls. 13,000 of it is for fire investigations, and that's just a good round estimation of what we may need. The more important thing is the 25,000 for hazmat. In the past umpteen years, we've never touched that money, but as per the contract, we have to have the money in the budget. And shortly after the recession, in order to make our budget look better, we took that money out. Fortunately, we didn't need it, but we went to the board at that point in time and said, if we need it, we're going to come back to you and ask for it. But one of the times when we were redoing the contract, it was brought up that it really is supposed to be in the budget. But we just don't touch that money unless, God forbid, we actually do need it.
So it returns back to the general fund, or it rolls over?
Yep.
And Amy, I just want to say, I think that's such a great explanation, so well thought out, especially on your birthday. So happy birthday.
Oh,
It's her birthday.
No, I gotta buy her something. Yeah, that's always been a confusing part, Rachel, with the 20. We're obligated to have it in the budget. We don't have to spend it, but the contract with the City of Glens Falls from back many years ago says we're obligated to have it in the budget.
So you're saying it was a good question. 15 questions.
Any other questions by the committee? All right? Yes.
Amy, how old are you?
Oh, boy.
Oh, Jim.
I'm 25.
How old?
Oh, boy, there we go.
Okay.
All right, back to, unless there's any other questions, back to our agenda. I would like to bring up to the committee again, I brought this up last year, and the situation has not gotten any better. The vehicle that is used for our hazmat response, the vehicle is from 2003, 2004. I asked last year to put it into the vehicle fund to have that vehicle replaced, and Mr. Dusick brought up the fact that the vehicle has less than 5,000 miles on it. That is true, but it's also a 2003 and 4 that has been sitting outside for the last 13 years, rusted out. We have spent, I cannot even add up the amount of money we've spent in turbos and the things to keep this thing running. Every time we go to use this truck, it fails on us, which happened Thursday night. So I would like to ask the committee if we can try to put that vehicle purchase back in the vehicle fund for next year.
How much was that?
$56,000. It's not your standard vehicle, it's a heavy-duty pickup truck which averages on state contract around $40,000, plus the work body that is on the back that is used to carry equipment. It also carries a generator.
Right?
Do we have a place to put this inside now?
Not yet.
If we buy this? We still don't. Or it wasn't slated to go in that building to fit in with...
I'm not sure exactly what the space is going to be right now and how we're going to allocate that. It sure would be nice to have it inside. The problem is that vehicle needs to be near the Glens Falls Fire Department who operates it. So the vehicle sits at their firehouse, and that way there, when there is a hazmat call, the 4 firefighters get in that vehicle and go and do the job. The longer or the farther away we put that vehicle from those guys, it just increases our response time.
So it's been up here all of the
No,
time?
it's been at the Broad Street Firehouse.
Oh, okay.
The trailer we keep at the South Queensbury Firehouse, which we pay rent for. Ideally, when we get into the Murph building, we'll be able to put this stuff inside in a controlled environment as far as temperature goes without having to pay rent. Hopefully you're not going to charge me rent.
Where are we with that thing?
In my discussion recently with the electrician, and I don't want to speak out of turn for facilities, but the welder that was going in, the county welder, to do the upgrades to the structural problems, you recall there was some structural bracing that needed to be done. He's hesitant to do the welding yet because of the amount of material that's there, trash, from the existing tenant. He's concerned about a fire hazard.
There's a lot of dust.
I'm sorry?
A lot of dust.
Yes, absolutely. So, right now, I cannot answer for them. I don't know what they're doing. I assume, I was told that they have asked the vendor or the tenant to start cleaning things up. We've asked them for a year now to clean it up. So, I'm just waiting. The electrician knows what he has to do. He's ready to go, but when someone tells me it's ready, we'll go from there.
Would it be the pleasure of this committee to consider the additional purchase of $56,000? That would be added to the budget, right?
It goes into vehicle fund, I assume.
I'm over.
Moved by
Whatever.
Dan Gerard, seconded by Supervisor Brock,
No, I was pointing at Frank.
I'll second it.
seconded by Supervisor Brantley. Yes.
I feel okay doing that, but I would much rather find a way to get this vehicle under cover if we're going to have to replace it because of it sitting outside in the elements. Sounds like that's the issue there. That's why we're getting the new truck, because it's being exposed.
The environmental isn't all, as far as, the fact that it's been outside.
Yeah.
The other fact is, it's well known that the engine in this year from Ford with the diesel turbos, they are just a money pit. And because in a lot of organizations, if you drove this every day as a contractor, you probably have a little better results. We don't drive it every day, it sits. And then we jump in it and try to go somewhere. So the firefighters in Glens Falls do regularly move the truck. They run it up one exit on the Northway or whatever.
Yeah.
But it is not getting used daily. So the gentlemen, our mechanics up in Warrensburg, the DPW mechanics, are very familiar with this engine because they use the same Ford trucks that this is. And they've worked on it 4 times at least, and it's been to the factory dealer, and the consensus is it's garbage. But I know that's not a correct term, but it inherently has problems with that engine, unfortunately.
How often do we use it?
Sorry?
How often do we use it out of necessity?
That's the problem. It probably, between exercises, drills and stuff, it may roll 6 times a year. It's not, it's like a piece of apparatus for the fire trucks. You don't use it every day, but it better work when you need it. And that's the downside that we've had. It is getting used. We use it for the Glens Falls firefighters on the cause and origin team. You saw in the budget, we have the cause and origin budget where we have investigators from Glens Falls we pay to go and do the cause and origin on the fires. that's the vehicle they use to get there, because it belongs to us.
Is there,
So,
would you have reservations about finding a suitable second-hand vehicle?
I don't think
As
so.
opposed to a
I'm
brand
not
new one?
sure how well that would work, because the body on the back, it's got a work body, you know, with the compartments. It's not a standard pickup truck.
Okay.
It's a club cab with or crew cab with the compartments on the back. I'll be glad to bring more information. You don't have to make a decision today. I feel that, it's my obligation to bring forward something that I see that is an issue. If you want to hold off, that's up to you guys. Somewhere along the way, we got to replace it.
Yeah, have you talked to Frank about where we're gonna get the money for?
No, I'm just bringing this forward to the committee. I have not brought it anywhere else at this point. To be very honest with you, the situation we had Thursday night and the fact we needed the truck over the weekend, kind of brought me to a point where I felt I should bring it up again.
Well, the motion has been made and seconded to consider establishing a reserve fund. Is that what we're thinking of doing?
We have
Or-
a reserve fund.
Well, I think we're thinking of purchasing it then for $56,000. Okay.
I consider it, but, there's a lot of other things here that I think, when you get about the total tally here, you might gonna reconsider.
All right, well, why don't we give the budget officer at least a consensus of what our committee is thinking. We've moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed, okay. So,
Dan, is that Perkins under your facilities?
Yes.
Can you push that a little bit about getting them to clean that up? See where they are with that.
yeah, we've been down there a couple of times too.
There's gotta be, there has to be a day where that recycling thing is not running, and we could send a person in there with oh my gosh, the word is escaping me.
All right,
The welder, so there's not debris flying around at the same time he's trying to weld.
The problem, Supervisor Bramer, is I've done a lot of work in paper mills in my life, and the dust accumulates on top of the girders and everything, and that's a hazard. So what normally is done, the big locations, they'll go in there for a couple hours and they'll send a guy in with a compressor, and he'll blow all the dust out. Then you can go ahead and do what you got to do. It's not difficult, but yes, the dust is an issue. You can have a dust explosion or a dust fire. So, again, I apologize. I have not run this through facilities. This is what I was told by the electrician the other day.
Frank?
Can we get that nice new bucket truck down there and blow the dust off the girders? What do you think?
They have a lift down there now that was brought in for the welder. I don't know what's being used. The county also, you're right, the county has a new lift that they bought.
Yeah.
Again, I shouldn't speak on behalf of the facilities. Those guys know what they're doing down there.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Next. Sheriff?
Thank you.
Sean, the floor is yours.
I like the old Arraignment fire first. And then...
You're gonna retire?
What's that?
I am gonna retire if we can't get that building set up.
It already drilled in, or for travel, so there's no cost. Sign that, I wouldn't-
Here. Here.
Thank you.
It did.
You're laughing at art.
I thought that was a good one, man. I thought it was witty, it was right there, it was messy.
If I can ask you to sign that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I never did see your budget.
So you trimmed it.
Right here. Right here, right?
You did? You sent me a happy birthday. It was my son's birthday.
Oh, it was?
I forgot to read.
So that wasn't the love note I was talking about.
Go ahead. You want to say it?
That's raised. Leave out, leave ahead of time.
It's the...
I'm just worried
Send in a numerical
about,
value.
first of all, I don't know enough about what,
I seen somebody else.
I only know what I did.
Yeah, I just had like a
love notes out for everybody who's still outstanding.
I saw other people.
Okay, floor is yours. We have some resolutions here.
I'm on the same hit list, but I've got 30 of them done now.
I'm pretty sure that's illegal to go closer to the lake than the required setback.
I'm just saying people do that.
Okay, Sean?
Is that Ron?
Yep.
Our agenda is relatively short. Item A is a resolution request for a new contract with Tyler Technologies to provide software and training for the Civil Division. This is something that we've discussed probably for the last 3-4 years, and every year we've kind of kicked the can down the road, so to speak. We got to a point where Mike Colvin, who is obviously the head of our IT for the county, has been keeping this thing alive, and he said, you know, it really has come to a point where you need to do something to replace it. The reason we chose Tyler Technologies, they provide our CAD software, they provide our law enforcement records management system, so this is like another module that will directly integrate into the systems that we already have.
I'll make a motion, we approve it.
Moved by Supervisor Garrity, seconded by Supervisor Gerard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Item B, a resolution request to delete 1 computer programmer and 1 computer support technician positions within the Sheriff's Office. These
Make that
positions
motion.
were brought under the county IT earlier in 2017.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Supervisor Garrity, seconded by Supervisor
I just have a
Kramer.
quick comment too. I think that's great that we were able to consolidate some services there.
It works well.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Item C is a resolution request to transfer some funds between our accounts. The first one is to move $70,000 out of our corrections part-time budget into our corrections overtime salaries. Second one is to move $50,000 out of law enforcement regular salaries into our law enforcement part-time salaries. And the last request is to move $68,708 out of law enforcement regular salaries into law enforcement technical equipment, and that is to cover the cost of the software. Some of these items were initially included in our budget request, which we'll get to here in a second, and for the budget officer, we decided to move some of these purchases this year and use money that we have available to us now.
Moved by Supervisor Garrity, seconded by Supervisor Bramer.
I have a question.
Question?
Okay, when I was looking and voting on the first resolution request for Tyler Technologies, it said it's in your budget in technical equipment. Is that because you were counting on it being moved into there?
Correct.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Under topics for discussion, we've been working to fill our corrections vacancies. We currently only have 2 vacancies, and those are sergeant's positions. Since our last committee meeting, we've hired 4 corrections officers. And item B, under topics for discussion, our corrections overtime, because I want to keep you aware of where we're at. So far, as of September 15th, we've expended a little over $453,000. We expect the filling these vacancies that we've been having throughout the year, the pace through which we're burning through the overtime money is going to start slowing down.
Do you think, is the $70,000 that we just transferred, is that, do you think, to cover you for the year? Or
We did not move enough money to cover us through the year. I didn't want to move too much. I want to reevaluate it as we move forward. I can see that it's clearly slowing down now, so I don't want to move too much.
Okay, question?
Yeah, so you're down to just 2 vacancies?
Just 2 sergeant's positions at this
That's
time. Yes.
And then the 2 on workers' comp?
Right, and I don't know if you're aware, there was a hearing a week ago today down in Albany with New York State Comptroller's Office involving one of the long-term 207C employees. Based on, I got to sit through the entire hearing all witnesses. My interpretation is that perhaps the eyes of the attorney representing the New York State retirement system were opened a bit as to why that position cannot be a light-duty position based on what the Commission of Correction had sent to us.
So there's the possibility they may just approve him, but that remains to be seen. At this point, there was a continuance requested by the attorney representing us, and hopefully we'll know more in about a month or so.
Do you think, Sean, if one gets approved, the one we're talking about, that it would hasten the second one along?
The thought process is if the first one goes through, the second one should fall right in line.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, do we need a budget review?
You'll see before you we have 4 budgets. One of them is brand new to us, and we'll cover that one last. The first one we'll discuss is 3020. It is the budget for our communications center. Early in the summer this year, we had a violent storms go through. It heavily damaged Queensbury and Washington County, and during that storm, we lost our radio system, we lost our 911 system for phones, we lost our administrative phones, and we lost power to our facility, which should never, ever happen. If anybody's seen the size of the generators that's behind our building, it should never have happened. So what we found out from that is many things. We found that the UPS systems that we currently have in place, which were put in place back in 2004 when the facility opened, were no longer sufficient to power the equipment for the length of time that we had expected that they would stay up. More equipment has been added over the years to these systems. So we have a systems maintenance consultant, Mark Neal. He came to me with a list of things that we should do to rectify that. Systems that should have stayed up for about 45 minutes were going down after about 20 minutes, and that's not acceptable. The reason we found out our generator failed to come on that night, that the preventive maintenance that we have a vendor come in and do, had overfilled the generator somewhere between 8 and 10 gallons of oil, and there was a sensor on it protecting the motor on it, and that's why it didn't kick on. Our people forced it to run, and we're just lucky that nothing was damaged. One of the things that's not addressed at all in this is that we're going to be looking to move about $18,000 out of some other fund to cover putting preventive maintenance software back on the generator. It used to have software on there that monitored everything that was going on, and as technology and as the computer systems have changed, I think it was like Windows 95, it's just ancient. It doesn't do anything anymore.
Yes.
Do you do test runs to make sure that this doesn't happen in an emergency? I mean,
you do exercise.
Yeah, they do exercise it, yes.
Why wouldn't you have caught that before the storm?
They noticed there was a problem, and they actually thought it was a problem with the batteries on it, because the sensor wasn't telling them what it should have been telling them. And after the storm, we had Caterpillar here the next day, their representatives, and that's when they discovered what the actual issue was. It wasn't a problem with the batteries, it was the sensor protecting us.
The overfilling of the oil could have
Correct.
really done a job on that.
Correct.
Wow.
You're going to see under code 428, there's increases, and that's for the data links for the new radio towers going in. One of the radio sites is in Stony Creek. There's not a choice of vendors who we can go to over there. It's Frontier Communications, and the data link over there will be about $1,800 a month. The data link up on 149 for the new tower up there is going to be about $1,300 per month.
We've tried to negotiate that down, haven't we?
That is our negotiated price.
Okay.
I don't know if the committee's aware of it, but we've had a radio tower up in Hague for as long as I can remember, probably going back to at least 2004, and the cost for that run about $1,600 a month for the T1 lines and the fiber that we have up there. Anybody have any questions?
Sorry, this is not directly a budget request, or question. Are we using the IM responding software?
I believe everything just got finalized at the board meeting last Friday. So now we can move forward. I know they've been issuing the licenses to the different fire departments, to the different emergency services organizations to get them up and running. I can tell you that I had our senior staff from our communications center go down to Saratoga County last week because they actually have the system up and running. And I was just very disappointed to learn that most of the agencies do not use it as it was intended to be used.
Yeah, that's
So
going to be a problem.
I've already spoke with Director LaFleur as to how we're going to try and get people to embrace this, because unless people embrace it 100%, it's really going to limit the effectiveness of it.
Yes, Rachel?
Thank you. Just to follow up to Claudia's question on that, then, it was my understanding from Friday's meeting that we're getting the 3-year price, but we're only bound to a 1-year contract. So if in fact we don't find that it's being utilized or helpful in our area, is that correct?
My understanding, supervisors, we're in a 1-year contract with them at $19,000. I didn't had nothing to do with the pricing for it. That was all negotiated by OES, and then it got moved under our budget.
So it is a 1-year contract?
Yes.
So we can assess whether or not that's effective?
I would recommend we take a hard look at it to make sure we're getting our money's worth.
Is there a license? There's a user fee. Isn't there an additional cost on top of it?
I don't believe so.
Thank you.
Any questions on the communications? Next one I'd like to discuss is 3110, our law enforcement budget. Under revenues, you're going to see that we're projecting a $45,000 revenue through Six Flags. I believe Six Flags had budgeted somewhere in the area of about $57,000, $58,000. They contract with us to provide law enforcement services to the park. Essentially what they ask to have is a uniformed member there during hours of operation. And we've been billing them monthly throughout the summer. In the end, it's really not a cost for Warren County, because whatever it costs us, we pass that cost along to Six Flags.
Can I ask about revenues now before?
Yep.
Is that okay? Sean, 2 questions on revenues. One, what's sheriff's fees for $140,000? I see that's gone up a little bit.
Those are fees that are coming through our civil division.
So how
The
come that's
poundage.
only at $63,000 right now?
They're running lower.
So we may not actually meet our expected revenue on that?
That's correct.
But it looks like it's a significant amount, right?
It's potential. I know some of that stuff lags behind.
Okay. And then my other question was under the sheriff fraud investigations. Is that restitution that's being paid back? And if not, where does the restitution paid back go? The general?
What's the line number for that?
2268?
That money comes through DSS, pays for our part-time investigator that does fraud investigations.
Well, that's not restitution from, where does the restitution come from fraud cases?
I don't see it in this budget.
Frank, does it go to the general fund, restitution that's paid back by defendants when they're caught? Because that position pays, 10 times what we pay for it in restitution coming back to the county. And Kate used to give us presentations on that about how much money we were recovering back, but does it go to the general fund? Because I would think it should go back to the sheriff's office.
I don't think it comes back to us.
Sheriff? I don't know. So who do I ask? Mike Swan? Who do I ask about that, Mike? Are you going to find out for me? Thank you.
Some of the other revenues are going to remain the same. The law enforcement and marine services we provide up to Schroon Lake. The income from that comes from the town of Horicks and the town of Schroon Lake. Navigation and law enforcement, we feel confident that it'll be around $30,000 because we bumped up our law enforcement patrols we put out on Lake George. I'm sure you're aware that we have we did throughout the summer. We had one officer out Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, partnered up with the Park Commission, which was very successful.
What about that other state, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
Thank you. What about that other state aid that's now zero that we got last year for 78, but we've only brought in 28, so I'm assuming either that lag behind or it's low?
Other state aid can be, typically it's our traffic grants, and we don't bill for that until, actually, I don't bill for it until the end of September.
Oh.
The grant runs October 1st through September 30th. We have other grants that we receive, but we don't reflect those revenues in here because there's no guarantee that you'll continue to receive them.
Kind of like the half of the sheriff's fees?
Sheriff's fees come under what we put. Under our request, under the two codes, it's really the same stuff that we've had in years past, things that break and we replace throughout the year.
Oh, I can't believe I have this many questions. May I again?
Yes.
Sean, I probably should have called you ahead of time. Your amended budget, I'm paying close attention to all these stop DWI fines because Claudia and I have both been paying attention to the idea of stop DWI fines or DWI programs. And so I'm seeing in all these different budgets, DWI administration, DWI class like probation and DA and all these other places. So here you've got stop DWI fines, but an amended budget said 39.3, our actual amount 0. What's that about? Does that just not get updated until next year? On 2612?
Honestly, I don't know why that reflects 0, because I did speak with Patty Miller before preparing the budget, and she said the amount we would receive would remain static at the 39,750 or 375.
Was that something you would be kind enough to?
Certainly. I got that one fine.
Good.
That's right. Does it only come in one chunk from the state? Oh, it is end of August? It doesn't get updated. Oh, what's today? Yeah. Oh. I got that one. I got that one. Oh, Frank.
Under Code 413, which deals with repair and maintenance issues with our facilities, we have two codes that pay for everything that breaks or needs to be repaired on the building. Upon reviewing things that we already know we have to pay for in 2018, there's already about $22,000. That's prior to anything else breaking or failing in the facility. The other thing under 455, under safety equipment, our soft body armor is recommended to be replaced on a 5-year cycle. We identified 48 ballistic vests for patrol that need to be replaced. The last large order we had was in 2012. The good news is that we receive 50% reimbursement through the Bulletproof Vest Partnership, and I already did the application this year to cover 50% for this purchase. And you notice there's no money in there for vehicles because that comes out of a reserve fund. One of the things we were able to do, very much thanks to Acting Administrator Kevin Garrity, is he referred us to Assemblyman Dan Steck's office, and they had a $100,000 capital project, and we applied for that to buy 4 patrol cars. And the thought by Dan's assistant, Deborah Capizzuti, is that should go through.
Sean, I'm going to let Kevin take over. My wife had some surgery, and I've got to take her to the surgeon for the final checkup, so I'm got to run down to Saratoga.
All right, good luck. Thank you.
Where are we? He's on the
3110. Anybody, any more questions on 3110?
Okay, next budget is 3150, Sheriff's Correction. One of the, probably the single biggest impact you'll see to the budget is this year we projected we've taken about 400,000 in boarding. We're nowhere near that. At the time the numbers were run, we were running about 69,000. Part of that big decrease is actually, most of the big decrease is due to the fact that federal inmates were no longer being sent up to Warren County. They were keeping them down in Rensselaer County, Albany County, which is obviously much closer to the courts that they're actually bringing them to. Our captain, who runs the facility, has been reaching out to other correctional facilities to bring in inmates, and at this point, we have 6 inmates boarded there. 5 are from St. Lawrence, and 1 is a federal inmate, so now we're starting to get federal inmates back. So you'll see that we cut our projections for 18, we reduced it to 200,000. And hopefully we at least meet or exceed that. Under departmental request under the 2 codes, under 210, purchase or replace chairs in the facility. That's a normal item. Things break, things wear out. Purchase 3 monitors, associated equipment to enable live viewing of the camera system in the captain's and lieutenant's offices. Another wear and tear items, purchase 10 duress alarms for the staff in the facility. Purchase an additional software license for the sergeant's office will allow them to view and burn actual surveillance footage. Purchase 15 portable radios. Purchase mechanical restraints. And to purchase 3 pan-tilt zoom cameras. Some of our pan-tilt zoom cameras that we have are original to the facility. We need to get them updated and replaced.
Any questions? Any more questions on corrections? That's a lot of money. A lot of money.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
You said that the overtime for the suicide thing, watch, you know, the inmates coming in, has tapered off. Why do you think that's occurred?
I'm sorry, I think you're referring to the one-on-one watches?
Yeah, right.
That is not tapered off. That's going to remain the same or increase.
I thought you would.
The overtime for the vacancies, for the unfilled corrections officer positions, that should go away.
Okay.
The other part which you're discussing is a totally separate component that drives the cost of overtime.
I missed it. Don't mind me, I just...
Okay, the last budget is, and this just got moved under the sheriff's office this year, it's 3510, which is control of animals, which is the contract with the Warren County SPCA. And it remains the same as it was for 2017.
I guess no one's here to control us, so. And maybe Rachel knows this, the rabies follow-up things happening through social services, is that under their budget? Because we have to pay someone to...
Yes.
I think it comes under public health, right?
It's under public health.
Public health.
Public health.
Okay, yes.
Works fine.
They
I
have
was
a
just
new
thinking maybe it was...
adopted. Yeah, no, public health.
Public health, and it's working fine.
Okay, great.
No issues.
And I see that the SPCA is thinking of asking 120, but we're only budgeting 100,000.
They did ask for 120, and through our budget committee process, and working with the budget officer, we kept it at 100,000.
Supervisor Leggett?
I still question the $100,000 altogether in the SPCA. The past 2 years, I've really never been able to get a handle on it, why Warren County pays $100,000, Washington County pays nothing. For grades and such. I'm glad to see it from under a department where it does get but I think we should really question its need.
Go ahead.
I think Washington County does pay something. I talked with the sheriff a couple weeks, well, probably not a couple weeks now, probably a couple months ago, but talked to him about the contract they have over there and how that is utilized, and I'm sure Sheriff Murphy would discuss with us the pros and cons of what he has there. But just like Glens Falls has a contract with a different SPCA as well, I think they all kind of vary, but I do know there is a cost. I just don't recall how much it was. So I know it's not zero, but I just don't know what it is. But he
Well, maybe we should ask the SPCA, the upstate one that takes care of Washington County.
I don't think so. I think it's a different one.
Yeah.
Maybe, do you guys know? Because they handle Glens Falls.
Yeah,
I think it's a
still not
different
clear
one.
why it's the county's obligation.
For what now?
Exactly.
County's obligation for what?
SPCA.
No, what's
The towns are responsible for dogs.
Right.
Correct. So
But
we
there's
have
the
animal
other-
control officers.
The other ones are the domestic animals like cats. Towns don't take care of cats, horses, pigs, sheep, that type of animal. I think the abuse things are done by SPCA, to my knowledge, Craig. The only thing we ever did was dogs. The towns are responsible for the dogs. The other things were the county.
By statute or the county?
I think it's law.
Responsible for taking care of the cost of these other domestic animals.
I believe as long as I've been here, there's always been a contract with SPCA.
Yeah, but it was money. Right.
Right, but it was less on the less. And I think a lot of the towns were picking up some of the costs.
I think, may I?
Go ahead.
I think it was a cost being subsidized by the towns, but it was really a county responsibility in years back, because there was also a grant that was given, not a grant, but an endowment, a large endowment. And so when they finally came to the county 4 years ago about that, when Paul Dusick was still here, they were able to show the discrepancies of what their endowment was paying versus what the county was paying, and they brought in all the bills. We spent enormous amount of time going through it, but I know Amanda's office has all of that. So it was around Christmas time in 2013. So you might want to ask Amanda's office, and there's a whole comparison of what it was costing. Maybe 2014. I don't really know, but I recall being involved in it.
Granted, there's costs involved. The question is, why is the county picking up the tab for the SPCA?
I think it's dictated by law. I mean,
I do believe we are responsible, but
Yeah.
I'll defer
The
to the
county
county
can.
attorney. There's certain aspects that the county has to do, and the town does control of dogs, and the county does the control of the other animals, right?
As I sit here right now, I don't know the specific statutory authority, but I can certainly look at that, Supervisor, and get you an answer promptly.
Will you send it out to everybody so we can all see it?
Sure.
Any other comments or questions about SPCA? And you know,
Adjourn.
I'll second that
motion to
motion.
adjourn. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second. We're adjourned. Thank you.